Good morning to the few students who actually watch these and complete your assignments. I think I've received 21 now out of 68 assignments for last week. So, not sure what we're doing, but it's not school. So, I'm not sure why I keep wasting my time in making these videos, but I guess I'm going to do it for the few that actually listen. So, here's your e-learning assignment for today. It's dust tracks on a road. The Great Gatsby briefly introduces us to one of the most creative and influential literary and art movements in our country's history, which is the Harlem Renaissance. One of the short stories that gained a lot of attention was Dust Tracks on a Road by Zora Neale Hurston. It explores what it was like for a child of color during this time period. If you need help on this assignment, please ask me before Sunday of this week. Or if you're going to ask me on Sunday, please tell me what time on Sunday you would like to get help on this. I've promised my family that Sunday is the day that I don't do work for school, since it's kind of occupied my days, my afternoons, and my nights, because students email me all day, every day. And it's not just Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays either. It seems like apparently some of you are taking advantage of working during quarantine when we can't work during quarantine. So you don't even answer me until Saturday or Sunday. So I have no idea you need help at all through the week until the weekend. So if you're going to do that, could you at least tell me what time I need to be available during the weekend so that I can make better plans? Because right now, all day Saturday and all day Sunday is not working out so hot for me. Here's the story. Click on it. It'll download, and then it'll open up the PDF. The questions that you need to answer are at the bottom of the PDF. So the story is called From Dust Tracks on a Road by Zora Neale Hurston. I used to take a seat on top of the gatepost and watch the world go by. One way to Orlando ran right past my house, so the carriages and cars would pass before me. The movement made me glad to see it. Often the white travelers would hail me, but more often I hailed them and asked, "Don't you want me to go a piece of the way with you?" They always did. I know now that I must have caused a great deal of amusement among them, but my self-assurance must have carried the point, for I was always invited to come along. I'd ride up the road for perhaps a half mile, then walk back. I did not do this with the permission of my parents, nor with their foreknowledge. When they found out about it later, I usually got a whipping. My grandmother worried about my forward ways a great deal. She had known slavery, and to her my brazenness was unthinkable. "Get down off of that gatepost, you little sow, you. Get down. Settin' up there looking dem white folks right in the face. They's going to lynch you yet, and don't stand in that doorway gazing out at dem either. You's too brazen to live long." Nevertheless, I kept right on gazing at them and going a piece of the way whenever I could make it. The village seemed dull to me most of the time. If the villages was singing a chorus, I must have missed the tune. Perhaps a year before the old man died, I came to know two other white people for myself. They were women. It came about this way. The whites who came down from the north were often brought by their friends to visit the village school. A Negro school was something strange to them, and while they were always sympathetic and kind, curiosity must have been present also. They came and went. Always the room was hurriedly put in order, and we were threatened with a prompt and bloody death if we cut one caper while the visitors were present. We always sang a spiritual, led by Mr. Calhoun himself. Mrs. Calhoun always stood in the back, with a palmetto switch in her hand as a squelcher. We were all little angels for the duration, because we'd better be. She would cut her eyes and give us a glare that meant trouble, then turn her face toward the visitors and beam as much to say it was a great privilege and pleasure to teach lovely children like us. They couldn't see that palmetto hickory in her hand behind all those benches, but we knew where our angelic behavior was coming from. Usually, the visitors gave warning a day ahead, and we would be cautioned to put on shoes, comb our heads, and see to fingernails and ears. There was a close inspection of every one of us before we were marched in that morning. Naughty heads, dirty ears, and fingernails got hauled out of line, strapped, and sent home to lick the calf over again. This particular afternoon, the two young ladies just popped in. Mr. Calhoun was flustered, but he put on the best show he could. He dismissed the class that he was teaching up at the front of the room, then called the 5th grade in reading. This was my class. So we took our readers and went up front. We stood up in the usual line and opened to the lesson. It was the story of Pluto and Persephone. It was new and hard to the class in general, and Mr. Calhoun was very uncomfortable as the readers stumbled along, spelling out words with their lips and mumbling undertones before they exposed them experimentally to the teacher's ears. Then it came to me. I was 5th or 6th down the line. The story was not new to me because I had read my reader from lid to lid the first week that Papa had bought it for me. That is how it was that my eyes were not in the book, working out the paragraph which I knew would be mine by counting the children ahead of me. I was observing our visitors, who held a book between them following the lesson. They had shiny hair, mostly brownish. One had a looping gold chain around her neck. The other was dressed all over in black and white with a pretty finger ring on her left hand. But the thing that held my eyes were their fingers. They were long and thin and very white, except up near the tips. There they were baby pink. I had never seen such hands. It was a fascinating discovery for me. I wondered how they felt. I would have given those hands more attention, but the child before me was almost through. My turn next, so I got on my mark, bringing my eyes back to the book, and made sure of my place. Some of the stories I had reread several times, and this Greco-Roman myth was one of my favorites. I was exalted by it, and this is the way I read my paragraph. Yes, Jupiter had seen her Persephone. He had seen the maiden picking flowers in the field. He had seen the chariot of the dark monarch pause by the maiden's side. He had seen him when he seized Persephone. He had seen the black horses leap down from Mount Etna's fiery throat. Persephone was now in Pluto's dark realm, and he had made her his wife. The two women looked at each other and then back to me. Mr. Calhoun broke out in a proud smile beneath his bristly mustache, and instead of the next child taking up where I had ended, he nodded at me to go on. So I read the story to the end, where flying Mercury, the messenger of the gods, brought Persephone back to the sunlit earth and restored her to the arms of Dame Ceres, her mother, that the world might have springtime and summer flowers, autumn and harvest. But because she had bitten the pomegranate while in Pluto's kingdom, she must return to him for 3 months of each year and be his queen. Then the world had winter until she returned to earth. The class was dismissed, and the visitors smiled at us and went into a low-voiced conversation with Mr. Calhoun for a few minutes. They glanced my way once or twice, and I began to worry. Not only was I barefooted, but my feet and legs were dusty. My hair was more uncombed than usual, and my nails were not shiny clean. Oh, I'm going to catch it now. Those ladies saw me too. Mr. Calhoun is promising to tend to me, so I thought. Then Mr. Calhoun called me. I went up thinking how awful it was to get a whipping before company. Furthermore, I heard a snicker run over the room. Henny Clark and Stella Brazel did it out loud, so I would be sure to hear them. The smart aleck was going to get it. I slipped one hand behind me and switched my dress tail at them, indicating scorn. Come here, Zora Neale, Mr. Calhoun cooed as I reached the desk. He put his hand on my shoulder and gave me little pats. The ladies smiled and held out those flower-looking fingers toward me. I seized the opportunity for a good look. Shake hands with the ladies, Zora Neale, Mr. Calhoun prompted, and they took my hand one after the other and smiled. They asked me if I loved school, and I lied that I did. There was some truth in it because I liked geography and reading, and I liked to play at recess time. Whoever it was that invented writing and arithmetic got no thanks from me. Neither did I like the arrangement where the teacher could sit up there with a palmetto stem and lick me whenever he saw fit. I hated things I couldn't do anything about, but I knew better than to bring that up right here, so I said yes, I loved school. I can tell you do, Brown Taffeta gleamed. She patted my head and was lucky enough not to get sand spurs in her hair. Children who roll and tumble in the grass in Florida are apt to get sand spurs in their hair. They shook hands with me again, and I went back to my seat. When school let out at 3 o'clock, Mr. Calhoun told me to wait. When everybody had gone, he told me I was going to the Park House. That was the hotel in Matland, the next afternoon to call upon Mrs. Joneston and Miss Hurd. I must tell Mama to see that I was clean and brushed my head from head to feet, and I must wear shoes and stockings. The ladies liked me, he said, and I must be on my best behavior. The next day I was let out of school an hour early and went home to be stood up in a tub of suds and be scrubbed and have my ears dug into. My sandy hair sported a red ribbon to match my red and white checked gingham dress, starched until I could stand alone. Mama saw to it that my shoes were on the right feet since I was careless about left and right. Last thing, I was given a handkerchief to carry, warned about my behavior, and sent off, with my big brother John to go as far as the hotel gate with me. First thing, the ladies gave me strange things like stuffed dates and preserved ginger and encouraged me to eat all that I wanted. Then they showed me their Japanese dolls and just talked. I was then handed a copy of Scribner's magazine and asked to read a place that was pointed out to me. After a paragraph or two, I was told with smiles that that would do. I was let out on the grounds, and they took my picture under a palm tree. They handed me what was to be a heavy cylinder done up in fancy paper tied with a ribbon, and they told me goodbye, asking me not to open it until I got home. My brother was waiting for me down by the lake, and we hurried home, eager to see what was in the thing. It was too heavy to be candy or anything like that. John insisted on toting it for me.